to the Art of Conscious Living TV. I have a very special guest today, Philip Shepherd from Toronto, Canada. He's the author of the book, New Self, New World. It's an incredible book. It's a very profound book. It's a very intelligent book, mapping us through how we use our minds too much, how we are very attached to our minds, and we have lost our true essence of who we really are. We're getting out of touch with that innate natural wisdom within us. We're in a technological society, so more and more we're becoming more lost in that world also. So between the worlds of mind and the world of technology, we're losing who we really are. Today in the studio of San Francisco, I have the great honor and pleasure to speak with Philip. He's in the studio and he's on his way to the beautiful Big Sur, to Esalen, to teach a weekend class there. And I'm very, very pleased to have him in the studio and talk to him about his book, New Self, New World. Let's take a moment to look at this short video clip.
Brain in the head is where we consciously think. The brain in the belly is where we can consciously be. What we're going to do is look at 4 ways in which the breath can be welcomed into the body. They're not just different ways of welcoming the breath into the body, they elicit a different state of being. When you compromise your breath, you compromise your being, so that your connection with your own being is diminished as the breath is diminished, as it fills less and less of the body. Find the tailbone, let the tailbone just drop. Find that spaciousness in the pelvic floor, and then lift yourself up from the perineum. In the scale of things, when doing arises from your being, it's empowered by your being. When doing happens independent of your being, it loses those roots, that connectedness, that bodily wisdom. In the course of the exercises, what we're hoping to do is to soften the body and heighten the sensitivity and find the place of groundedness that enables us to experience that other pole of our consciousness. Our culture tends to set up an either-or scenario, so we're either in an analytical, rational place, or we move into a place where we feel and come into relationship. My work is different. It's about finding a way to marry those two.
Philip, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So how are you today?
Well, I'm pretty wonderful. I'm really looking forward to this with you. We talked once before, and
Yes.
it was for me. It was so rich and so much fun. So it's just a real pleasure to be here.
The talk we did before was on Skype.
Yeah.
And we had an incredible connection, even though via on Skype. So here in the studio, it's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
So let's get right into this book here, New Self, New World. I was taken back so much by reading it that it's so amazingly apropos to what's going on in the world today, that everybody is very much in their heads. Nobody's connected to that core essence of their heart. Their core of who they really are has been completely lost. who we really are is this beautiful, innate container of love and empathy and openness and intuitiveness and living in the experiential. But something in the last decades, as I mentioned in the intro, about the technical world of the web and the internet, we have become much, much more centered in the head. Henceforth, all the chaos in the world is going, and it's picking up at a rapid speed, like unbelievable. So let's start about where you came up with this incredible book. What was your first impetus and your idea to write this book?
I was on holiday in Italy with my family.
Mm-hmm.
This is how it happened, and I just don't tend to go on holidays. So I'm decompressing for 3 days, and like literally at 6 o'clock in the morning, I, in a flash, was as wide awake as I've ever been in my life with the first line of this book in my head. And I was totally animated, and I sort of lay there in the dark, kind of by 7 o'clock. I'd roughed out the first chapter. By 8 o'clock, I had a sense of the next two. So for the rest of our holiday, I would, stay back at the home base writing as my wife and the kids went off to San Gimignano and saw the sights. I was obsessed, and it actually took me 10 years to bring the book to completion. And I've had people very kindly say how wonderful that you were able to stick with it for that long. And it just wasn't like that at all. It was a soul agony to be away from.
That came to you?
Well, the first line is not the line that was in the book, but it was this comparison that for years, we thought we could fly, and we looked around at birds and butterflies and thought, well, the way to fly is by fashioning wings and flapping them. And what liberated us from that was a principle, which was Bernoulli's principle, which I won't go into, but the shape of a bird's wing gives it a natural lift, just as the shape of an airplane wing gives it natural lifts. But this idea that we're trapped, we're stuck to conceptions of how to do things, and to dive beneath that structure into an animating principle is really what we need to liberate ourselves.
So in my intro, speaking about the mind versus the innate core essence of who we are, you do have chapters that address that in the book. So let's speak about that. Where do you see we are in the society, in the world today, in 2016, of people who are identifying with the mind? Most people only actually know their mind. They're very disconnected from anything else but their mind.
Yeah. For me, it's part of an ancient arc, and it has to do with our balance within ourselves. So we were originally, as a culture, we were gathered around the mother, and there are all those ancient European cultures that were gathered around that miracle of birth and what the mother represented, and the mother was felt in the world around as the origin of the life of the world. And what happened was we became increasingly abstract in order to survive. We discovered agriculture, we domesticated animals, we built permanent settlements, and all of these things are slight degrees of increasing abstraction. As that happened, we changed our relationship to the body. So we actually used to feel our thinking deep in the belly. And what happened, you can see this in the way language developed, that center began to rise. And in Homer's day, it was in the chest. And there's a word phrenos that he uses over and over. And I don't know why this doesn't inspire curiosity in people. This phrenos means mind, but it also means diaphragm. So in Homer's original language, which Richmond Lattimore in his translation preserves. Characters in effect were saying, the mind within my breast understands your words. And then not long after that, we ended up in our heads. And to be in your head is to have the choice of cutting yourself off from the body's sensations. And the body is your bridge to the world. You feel the world through the body. You don't feel through the head. The brain is the one part of our body. You can operate on the brain. You don't need an anesthetic. It doesn't feel. And so we've moved increasingly from a place of felt relationship into a place of known relationship. And we think knowledge is going to save us. And we're trying to figure it out, and we put so much investment in gaining data and information. In the meantime, there's this current of information that is available to the senses. You feel things and you're getting information in a whole different way. And that we've lost our access to that.
Yes, I was very struck in the book that you come from a very practical way, and you come from a very philosophical way too. The practicality is you have all these incredible exercises in there that really ground the person, bring the person back to their self, their true core again.
Yeah, I'm fortunate because I've been an actor all my life.
Mm-hmm.
Any exercise that really serves an actor well is just another means of helping the actor to be present. And I had the double advantage of having trained in Oriental theater. So when I was a teenager, I went to Japan and studied.
Is that kabuki?
Classical no theater in Japan, which is like kabuki but older and very restrained. But I watched a no play when I was 17, and I was actually reduced to tears by it, and I could not understand for the life of me how that play had had such a deep effect on me.
And what was it?
So when I went to Japan, I discovered this culture has sort of as their foundation the concept of hara. And hara is the Japanese word for belly. But there is so little resemblance between their use of the word belly and ours. I mean, for us, the belly, it's a source of embarrassment and indigestion. I mean, we have this very unsettled relationship with the belly.
And in Japan?
It is the seat of their profoundest truth, their profoundest understanding. It's where they return to when they really want to connect with themselves. So when I watched that no theater, every gesture arose from that place. I'd never seen that in my life. And that's what touched me so deeply.
So there was much more intense feeling being transferred from the stage. There was more energy being transferred.
Yeah, and there was a harmony. There was a lucid harmony. And harmony is like a lens. When something is in harmony, you see through it to the order of the world. You see through it to the grace of being itself. So because the no actor is so deeply centered in the body, and because every sound and every footstep is centered and sourced in that place, there is a harmony to the performance that, you see through that harmony to the very grace of being itself.
One of my favorite chapters of the book is bringing conscious into consciousness, and you have 12 points of that. Give us an overview of a few of those points.
Well,
And what is that? For those who are just wondering, what is she talking about? What possibly could this be?
Yeah, it's interesting when you really retract into the head, you're in a realm that is devoted to abstraction and to knowing things objectively. And there is this contraction that happens. What you're primarily thinking about is your own thoughts. and you go round and round thinking about your own thoughts about the world. And, when you describe it that way, it appears to be it's a somewhat impoverished existence. I don't know how else to say it, because you're busy sorting out your ideas about the world, and meanwhile there's the world around you that you're unable to connect with.
It sounds like you're on a loop.
Yes.
And you're just going,
Orbiting.
or like a hamster on a wheel. It's just continuously, you feel like something is going on. You feel like you're engaged, but actually you're not.
Yeah.
It's the most incredible lie.
Yeah. And that's how we're taught to live. I mean, when you think that we take 5-year-old children and tell them to sit in chairs at desks and suppress the body's energy. The body's energy is unacceptable. It has to be controlled. And meanwhile, you're taught to devote your attention to abstractions and learn things that don't even matter in your life, but you've got to get them into your head. So 12 years of that, and you produce citizens who are so out of touch with their own being.
Let's get back to bringing conscious into consciousness.
Yeah. So
just give me an overview of a few points of some of the 12 points.
Yeah. What happens as you dilate into your fullest consciousness is you're leaving that contracted realm of abstraction, and you eventually feel the body's intelligence. And then you feel the attunement of the body to the world around it. And that attunement is sort of the essence of our intelligence, of our true intelligence. So because we live in the head, we've defined intelligence as the ability to reason in an abstract fashion. And when someone, and if I measured you with an IQ test, that would be what I was measuring. And intelligence, human intelligence, for starters, is sensitivity. Any sensitivity. I don't care if it's a sensitivity to a child's tears, to music, to arithmetic relationship. Any sensitivity is a form of intelligence. But then there are the people we call too sensitive. And what that is sensitivity, when it's not grounded, is just reactive. Right? It doesn't know how to take the information and make it coherent. And so I don't think there's any such thing as a person who's too sensitive. But there are certainly people with that kind of sensitivity who haven't been given the tools to ground themselves. So ultimately, when you dilate into your fullest consciousness, you're dilating into a realm of grounded sensitivity. And then you give credence to what you're feeling.
From my experience, my mind is not to be trusted. My mind, the thoughts are of past hurts, past pain, past fear is definitely residing there. In the breath, in the core, when I drop down into this, what I say from that belly we spoke about earlier, from the lower part of my below the navel, and I start to breathe from that area, it never, ever, ever leads me wrong. It serves me so well. It's a very accurate way of being and knowing.
Yeah.
So let's speak about that, because the mind is what everybody is really celebrating.
Yeah. Or, I think of it in terms of the brain.
The brain.
Rather than the mind, because to me, we talk about, the mind-body split. And as soon as you talk about a mind-body split, you're talking about a body that doesn't exist. Right? But this is what we do to it. There's no body that is mindless. Right? And there is a split, but it's a split within our minds, not between the mind and the body, because the body is... if you went to a morgue, you'd find a body that was without a mind, but any living body is so deeply mindful. So we've cut one part of our mind off from the other. And that area that you're talking about, there's actually a brain in the pelvic bowl that is independent of the brain in the head. That brain in the pelvic bowl doesn't serve as a sort of subsidiary of the brain in the head. It's its own genius that complements the brain in the head, and they have very different strengths. So the brain in the head, we're trying to integrate our lives and our feelings and our ideas, and what we're doing is we're appealing to the brain in the head, which excels at analysis. But analysis literally means pulling things to pieces. So we're trying to integrate our lives to get a sense of how to live in wholeness by using a faculty that breaks things into smaller and smaller bits. That other brain that you talk about, that one that you go to with the breath, its genius is integration. So you drop into that place, and literally, when I'm teaching workshops, I'm teaching people how to drop the center of their awareness down through the body to arrive on the pelvic floor. And it arrives there, and you're arriving in a realm that doesn't require language, understands the world in its own way, but understands the world from a place of wholeness. And you not only feel your own wholeness in that place, but you feel the wholeness of your life, and you also feel your wholeness as being indivisible from the world around you.
And there's also no separateness, right? There's not that feeling of being separate when you come from this place of the solar and that breath that we're speaking about.
Yeah, we agonize over duality, subject-object duality. Well, when you live in your head, the specialty of the intelligence in the head is that it gains perspective. Well, you gain perspective by creating distance. The head gains perspective from the world by diminishing or even cutting itself off from the sensations of the body. And perspective is valuable, but then what do you do with the perspective? How do you bring that home? And that journey of bringing a perspective home to integrate it can only happen through the body. And it arrives in that place of integration. And that, if the brain in the head is where we can consciously think, the brain in the belly is where we can consciously be. And just as you say, we imagine our being to be what's contained within our skin, but we have no real existence except by the grace of the world around us. Everything we see, everything we come into felt relationship with, illuminates who we are. And if you take someone out of that living context of the world, and you put them in an isolation chamber where they've got these mitts on and it's dark out and there's no light, there's no sound, they begin to hallucinate. They lose all sense of themselves because it's in relationship that we discover ourselves.
So the benefits of living in this consciousness, awareness of it, is you get much more of the sacredness, you get much more of a fluidness, aliveness to you. What else?
We cannot live without guidance. We need to orient ourselves to the world. Now you can find guidance in a set of ideas, or you can find guidance in the pulse of the present itself. The present is always there, ready to help you take the next step. But we defer to ideas. We want to figure it out, and we want to make the right decisions, and we agonize, and we go round and round in that contracted realm that is married to ideas. And eventually, what happens is our allegiance to ideas displaces our very bridge to the present. And I think the most dangerous people in the world are those who feel their ideas about the present more keenly than they feel the present. So when you move into that realm of felt relationship, you feel the kinship of the moment. You feel the present guiding you. And it's a dance that doesn't require the supervision whereby we are always watching ourselves and judging ourselves and second-guessing what we're doing. And it's torture. You know, that state is an agony.
Yes, I can imagine. And very jagged and very not sustainable.
Yeah, and yet we think that's how we can get it right.
Tell me on a day of you, what it would be like. You wake up, do you do a series of exercises and to ground yourself, to move yourself prepared for the day? Or are you just in this moment as you're sitting in front of me? I see you being very awake, very aware, very settled, extremely at peace with yourself, and very fluent.
So wholeness is how I orient my life. Wholeness, becoming whole. Now, I've tried out a whole lot of other ideals. You know, find peace of heart, live from compassion, live from a sense of sanctity, and they're all wonderful.
And is that setting up a bar and then maybe you couldn't get to it?
No, it's another little thing. Because say you take compassion as your ideal, which is a gorgeous, wonderful ideal. But it's such a subtle little slip between accepting it as your ideal and slipping into that place where you're saying, oh, I should be compassionate here. And as soon as that little slip happens, you're divided. Because there's the part of you that knows you should be compassionate and the part of you that is being pulled along to become compassionate. And you know what compassion looks like. So you're striving to that destination. Wholeness is something different. I don't know what my wholeness is going to look like, because my wholeness is inescapably part of the world around me. It's a dance, and it never ends. So I don't wake up one morning and say, oh, finally I'm whole. What next? Wholeness is this continuous process of integrating.
What are the parts of the wholeness? What is the look of it?
I would say the feel of wholeness is the feel of dancing. The feel of wholeness is the feel of surfing, where there is this wave. You don't own the wave, you don't control the wave, but you feel the wave.
Are you dancing alone, or are you dancing with a partner?
Oh, you're dancing. I don't know, you're dancing with the present. It's unfolding. And, we have this fallacy of knowing. We defer to known relationship rather than felt relationship. Well, you cannot know the present because you've never been here before. You never will be here again. It's never happened before. It's unfolding as you live through it, as it lives through you. But as soon as you slip into that fallacy of knowing the present, then you slip into the fallacy also of knowing yourself. And then you're unavailable to the dance.
Or knowing the other person.
Knowing the other person.
And knowing the possibilities of the situation. And
absolutely.
It's all lost.
And knowledge stands like a castle against mystery. Right? This idea that the world is knowable is one that drives our culture. And we've pinned our hopes on the idea that knowledge will save us. And that's like an undercurrent that drives our personal lives. If we can only know, figure it out and know more and more, we'll be okay. It drives our culture. We just need the answers. We need the technology. And, it's such a simple thing to say, well, if knowledge could save us, then we'd be in a much, much better position now as a species than we were 1,000 years ago. And the fact is, we've pushed the very systems that sustain our lives to the point of falling apart. So knowledge, and I really mean this, knowledge is lethal if it's not counterbalanced by self-knowledge. But we have no idea what self-knowledge is because we want to grasp it, we want to fix it, we want to pin it down. So we've turned self-knowledge into like a grocery list of attributes. Well, these are my values, and this is my favorite color, and these are my best friends, and that's who I am, like a Facebook page. And knowledge, self-knowledge, is the opposite of knowledge. Self-knowledge is what the world brings to you. The more deeply you come into relationship with it, you see a child playing on the sidewalk, and you come into felt relationship with that child, and you are illuminated in a particular way, just as you come into felt relationship with a tree, and that its presence illuminates you in a particular way. Well, we are illuminated by the world. We discover who we are as we come more and more deeply into relationship. But that attachment, that prejudice for knowing, for fixing it down, for getting it right and solid, it separates us from ourselves ultimately, and it separates us from the dance.
Philip, what advice would you have after people read your book, of course? What should they do? What is the best advice you could give them at this point in time that they are feeling anxiety, or they're feeling stress, or they're feeling lost or depressed, or what have you? What would you say to those people if they were right here in front of us?
The way in which we live in abstraction contracts our world. I call it the abstraction contraction. and so the more out of touch with the body you are, the more abstract the world becomes. And that undercurrent of anxiety that catches us and carries us, and that sense of never being able to catch up, is completely counterbalanced when you allow yourself to come to rest in the body and you feel the world as just this. So when you're in abstraction, the world is never just this. It's more than this, or it's less than this, but it's never just this. So you're up against something and you don't know how you're going to get through it, and it's like bigger than you can imagine, and it loses that quality of just this, of how to be present with it. The other way it goes when it's less than just this is you abstract everything, and so you've got a name for everything, and you don't even see the tree because you know it's a tree, and it's become less than it is.
So quite simply said, what could this person do at this moment in time? After they've read your book, they have somewhat idea of what it's all about, of being aware of consciousness and the core, and not identifying so much with the mind.
I would say the first thing tangibly that they can do is to find the breath in the pelvic floor.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And we lock up that part of the body, and it becomes immune to the breath. And to soften that and actually feel the breath, and it's a release. So,
would you give me an example?
Yes.
What it would look like?
Yes. So
breath.
We live in a top-down situation. Our whole culture is top-down because we live in the heads. So we think of the breath as moving down from the top into the body, and that takes muscles, and the muscles get tired, and our breath goes shallow again. So it's a totally different quality to release to the in-breath deep in the pelvic bowl. And if I release to the in-breath, I can feel the whole of my body releasing with it. And to release, it's one thing I teach in the workshops, is if you feel the support of the out-breath, then you can just release and the body breathes by itself.
So you put your attention on the end of the exhale?
Yes.
Yes.
So you feel that support and then you release.
Because the in-breath is like walking up a hill and the exhale is like walking down a hill. So you want to put your attention where the least resistance is.
Yeah. Now, what happens with the release is the pelvic floor naturally supports the out-breath and then can release to the in-breath. But then it also supports the in-breath and it can release to the out-breath.
And it's a whole body breath.
Yes.
It's not compartmentalized where you're breathing from the upper or mid. Your whole body is like, it's like the way the babies breathe when they're 1 and 2 years old.
It's so like the way babies breathe. I could stand at a crib and watch a baby breathe and just revel in it.
They're breathing perfectly.
And we lose that sense of the whole body breath. So if I'm allowing the breath into the whole of my body, my voice sounds like this, and I can constrict my my lower legs and it changes slightly. I can close off my hips and it changes, and I can shut down my body bit by bit. And what happens is my voice changes as my body becomes less accessible to the breath until all that's left is up here. But you can see. So when the whole of your being is available to the breath, then you land in the present. But as you say, there are those parts of us that we find unacceptable, that we don't know how to bring into relationship with our being. And it's like we've orphaned these parts of ourselves and that lives in the body. That quality of parts of ourselves being orphaned is, you find it in the body's tension, in the body's energy, and in so many different ways.
Your body must be so thankful when you start to breathe properly. And it takes a while to acclimate itself to this newness of this newfound perfect breath.
It does. And that the quality of fluidity, because you mentioned fluidity earlier, the quality of fluidity is one without which you cannot feel wholeness. So as you, like, we're 70% water. I mean, we're most of the way there, but we rigidify ourselves and we want to know things, and by objectively knowing something, you tend to grasp it. I mean, we talk about grasping knowledge, and it becomes consolidated, and then it loses that responsiveness to the breath. I mean, when the breath is dropping into the whole of the body, it's like a wave that the whole of the body responds to. But it's the quality of fluidity, and you don't achieve fluidity willfully. It's something to which you surrender. And so just to surrender to that delicious fluidity of the body carries you back to the body, back to the breath, back to the present.
Let's speak about a sacred marriage. What is that? And what is this? And what is the unbelievable infinite possibilities there? What is a sacred man and what is a sacred woman today?
That's such a wonderful question. To me, all of nature is this dance between complementary opposites. And it's like, I think of yin-yang, how these complementary opposites come together and make something new. So the sacred man, the sacred woman, in our culture we have vilified women, we have put them down, we have told them they're not worth listening to. I mean, what we have done to women for centuries and centuries is a reflection of what we do to ourselves. Because I experience the groundedness of my body, I experience that intelligence in the pelvic bowl as the female pole of my consciousness. It's where my being thrums and is centered. And we are addicted to this doing that the head so excels at. And when the male part of my consciousness is in balance with my female, the male serves the female. So it's like I gain a perspective with that part of me that so excels at abstraction. And I've got two choices. I can hold on to it, or I can bring it down through the body where it's offered in humility. And that perspective, when it's brought down through the body, is rebirthed as a sensitivity. And sensitivity has a bad rap in our culture because people are too sensitive. No, sensitivity is the foundation of our intelligence. And we're very, very clever, but we've forgotten how to live intelligently. And as long as we insist on running our lives from the head and on strategizing and refining agendas and moving forward in that way, we lose the pulse of our own being. And so it's not a matter of that intelligence in the head, we should get rid of it. No, it just needs to be brought into relationship with our being. And then its gifts are truly fulfilled. Until the gifts of that intelligence are brought into relationship, physically into relationship with our being, they haven't begun to fulfill their true value.
Let's speak about emotional intelligence, what that is. We speak about intelligence, that people are book read, they have their university degrees, their MBA, their master's, their PhD, but do we really ever speak about emotional intelligence? And why should we?
Emotions are the current of your life. Emotional intelligence is the intelligence that can take that energy and bring it into relationship with your being and ground it and be informed by it. You feel your life's path, not through abstract thinking. It's when you come into felt relationship with the world around you and you begin to feel the world. You feel its presence. You feel the world knowing you. You feel the present knowing you as much as you feel that you're knowing the present. It really is a mutual relationship. And then you hum. The present whispers to you, come do this, come follow your heart's passion. And that's what life's about. We've been born with, each of us has been born with such unique gifts. No one has your constellation of gifts. It's unique, and that constellation of gifts will reverberate to the world, and the world will call you to live those gifts and offer them to the world and bring them to fruition. But without that grounded attunement of emotional intelligence, we don't trust that. We don't even, I'm careful when I talk about feeling the present whisper to you. I'm careful because it sounds like wishful thinking or something to many people, because they've so closed themselves off from attunement to the present. And when you're not attuned to the present stops existing for you.
Right. There's a saying, the heart speaks, the soul whispers then, when the heart is speaking. And that is when the mind is turned down and quieted, and there's a stillness within us. Then that's where life sits, I believe. Yes. And that's how I experience it.
Yeah. There's I think of my core as a still point. And without that ability to come to rest, you cannot feel the whole. It's like you think of a pond at rest, and the merest fruit fly landing on the face of the pond will register and and be felt. And if the pond's not at rest and it's choppy, nothing registers, nothing's felt. And that's how we live our lives, in that jittery, choppy way of not knowing how to bring the body's energy to rest. So that place of rest is not in the head. The head can't come to rest. And what we desperately miss is that the body's energy is the mind, in effect. And we try to bring our minds to rest by applying our rules and our strategies, and it's so much more direct to bring your attention to the body's energy and allow the body's energy to come to rest. When the body's energy is at rest, the mind is at rest. When the body's energy is on edge, the mind is on edge. It's just, there's no separation between the two. And yet we're not encouraged, we're not taught, we're not helped to pay attention to the body's energy and notice the way it is, and then gain the skill of allowing it to come to rest. And when it comes to rest, then the whispering is felt, just like that fruit fly on the pond.
Philip, let's talk about your scheduling of traveling, and where have you been in the past, and where are you headed for?
It's been such a wonderful journey for me. I've toured extensively in the States, which I've loved. I'm from Canada, so it's an adventure for me.
Mm-hmm. Where in the States have you been?
Oh, I was in Pennsylvania 2 weeks ago. Then last week I was in Santa Barbara. I was doing a teacher's training. This is the second group of people I've been training in my work, and it's just, I love it so much. And I've been to Salt Lake City and Tucson and Seattle and Portland and Henrietta, New York, and I don't know, Florida. I was in.
You mentioned Bali.
And I'm going to Bali.
Yes. What's going on
in September? Oh, there's a retreat called Pure Immersions. It's a company that puts together retreats, and they've got this place in Bali, and it'll be 7 days, and I'm so looking forward to it, because it's like such an escape from the patterning of the way we live into this, lush. Where the workshop happens, it overlooks rice paddies in just outside Ubud, the main city of Bali. And then from there I'm going to Australia. I've got 4 workshops in Australia in October, and then in November I'm going to England. I've got 2 workshops and some talks there, and then to Hamburg in Germany, and then possibly to Salzburg.
And for those who want to contact you, you have your website, and... Yeah,
and I always, all the information of the workshops is there.
And your website is?
philipshepard.com. Mm-hmm. Of course, there are 16 ways of spelling Philip Shepherd, but it's Philip with 1 L and Shepherd, like the guy who looks after sheep. Mm. Yeah. And there's also a newsletter. I'd really encourage people to sign up for the newsletter with the promise that they will not be inundated. But the newsletter always has this little kind of thoughtful piece at the center of it that I get really positive.
Is there anybody else at the moment in time that you are admiring, an author, a world speaker, a motivator, somebody that inspires you?
There is.
And who would that be?
A guy called Rowan Williams.
Rowan Williams?
Rowan Williams. So Rowan Williams is the most deeply intelligent man I've ever met. And I mean that in the fullness of what I understand intelligence.
Well, everybody's Googling him right now.
Well, he was the Archbishop of Canterbury for 10 years.
Okay.
He has this passion for feeling the truth of things, and he has the ability to articulate it with such precision.
Is he an author?
He's written 30 books or so. And he's on YouTube. He's got talks, and he'll give talks. And
the reason you love him so much, and obviously in great respect and awe of him.
One of the things, he has an unflinching self-honesty. And he takes that honesty into his heart. And what is born of that is the most down-to-earth humility. And that humility enables him to see things and feel things and articulate things in ways that I find challenging and exciting.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What final thoughts would you like to share that you feel? Let's talk about your Justin Trudeau of Canada, who is very, very opposite to what's going on in our political arena right now with Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton. Yeah. Justin Trudeau is definitely a breath of fresh air.
He is, and he is equally opposite to what's been going on in Canada with Stephen Harper.
Yes.
Stephen Harper was just controlling to the nth degree, and he shut down science, and he shut down discourse, and I mean it was, and he's like the sense of my sense of the country being strangled.
Extreme conservatism.
Yeah. And that,
and religious too.
And dogmatically. So I love religion, but it's back to that thing of where when you feel your ideas about the present more keenly than you feel the present. So when religion becomes dogmatic, it loses the life. It disconnects from the life because it knows what should be. And I find that dangerous. And Justin Trudeau, I don't know, he was a drama teacher. He feels, he allows himself to feel. And he's much smarter than he looks. He's a really superb strategist. And it's a huge relief to have this new era of Canadian politics unfolding. Yeah.
And how about the American? Where do you see it?
As a Canadian,
Really?
I mean,
what do you think of Donald Trump?
I think.
Do you see through him? As Bill Maher is definitely onto him, and
I think the education system in America is so intent on answers that it's forgotten that the real goal, the real gold of education is teaching people how to ask questions. And when you learn how to question and how to tease truth from fallacy, when you learn, the vitality of that and the excitement of that, then you can look at things that are being said in the political arena and question it. Right now, things are being said that aren't being questioned because they feel right. And so when it feels right, that's the answer I've been looking for. So this attachment to answers, I don't have much use for answers myself, because an answer just stops me, right? It's the question that moves me forward. And that, when you think of the hero's quest, that quest is begotten of a question. And so it's a question that moves me forward, and things feel stuck and entrenched in a way that could profit from some patient questioning.
Patient questioning.
Yeah, because people have lost patience, and it's hard when something feels right. It's when the present is eclipsed by the idea, then the idea comes along and you attach to it. Gosh, that's what I've been thinking. And the ability to let go of the idea and just land in just this and see the clarity and the guidance of that kind of would disencumber so much from the political discourse that's going on.
Well, Philip, it's been a great honor indeed, and a great pleasure to speak with you. And
it's hard to believe the time has gone by.
Yes, I feel that we're just beginning. There's just so much more.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been a real treat.
And from the Art of Conscious Living TV, do take care of yourselves and take care of others. Thank you.